Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm welcome. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you today. It's great to see so much passion for a brand that has been through such a difficult experience. John Nash gave us a really interesting speech here earlier today, and it was great to hear about all the ups and downs of Norton in the past. And to put that into perspective, what we need to learn from the past in order to go into the future with our eyes wide open. And what that means in terms of Norton and the product and the brand. And so my name is Brian Gillen. I'm the Chief Technical Officer of Norton Motorcycles. I joined Norton just about 6 months ago. And it's been interesting coming inside of the Norton world, the Norton ecosystem, because there is such a strong brand identity and still so many people that are still attached to what Norton was and what Norton can be going into the future. And inside of the Norton Factory right now, I'm not sure how many of you have had a chance to come and visit us in Sully Hall, but to open the invitation here to everybody to come and join us and see what Norton is about today. It's about building for the future. It's about learning from the past, understanding where Norton was as a brand, and understanding what makes Norton Norton, and how do we get that into the next products that we want to bring into the market to make sure that we're capturing Nortonness. And I want to have a little talk about that here today because we have a lot of new products that we're getting ready to launch over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. I don't know if you've seen it in the press. Our CEO has mentioned we've got 3 new platforms and 6 new motorcycles that we're going to be launching here in just about 12 to 18 months from now. It's a little bit of a staggered launch into the market. And inside of those bikes, the most important thing that we can do is get in Nortonness. And I've had some interesting conversations with some of you here today out in the parking lot, having a cup of coffee here, to understand what makes Norton Norton to some of you. And I'd like to have more discussions here before I head out this afternoon, because that's the most important thing. The brand as a name is a promise. But when the motorcycle is delivered to the customer, that customer has to understand that we're delivering on that promise. And delivering on that promise is understanding what it is that the Norton customer wants from a Norton motorcycle. And I was sitting down with Alan Cathcart. We were having a chat a few moments ago with a cup of coffee. And we were talking with real estate. The most important thing is location, location, location. With motorcycles, it's the product. The product has to deliver. And inside of that, you have the brand. And with the brand, with motorcycles, you have the nationalistic part. So you have to be able to bring in what is Norton, bring in the British culture, bring in the idea of what a motorcycle is and designed and developed by the British engineers here in the UK. And this is where we're designing and developing the future of Norton motorcycles here in Sully Hall. And bring that together then with technology. And technology isn't just the piston, the valves, the electronic system, the app. Technology is also the tools that we use to design and develop and engineer the motorcycles. And the technologies that we're applying inside of Norton right now is applying some of the most advanced digital and virtual engineering in order to be able to get inside of motorcycles the high level of refinement and engineering that we can going into the future. Now, what does that mean in terms of motorcycles? The Norton brand has such a legacy. It has such a renowned results in racing. You have to think, where does Norton want to be positioned for the future? And what are those models? What is that brand represent to the people? Now, I can't go as much as I'd love to into detail and say exactly what we're doing, what the models are, where they're going to be positioned. But it's going to be positioning the Norton brand globally. So one of the biggest challenges for Norton as a manufacturer today is homologation and certification. As of today, the bikes that we're manufacturing are only single type approval here in the UK. So the 961 and the V4SVs, they're only UK homologated. To go worldwide with the Norton brand, it means all of our products have to be considered and engineered to go into Euro 5 plus homologations, which is really restringent in terms of exhaust emissions with noise. with electromagnetic radiation coming off of the bike. These are all things that we have to look at and make sure that the bikes that we're designing and developing are positioned to make Norton a global brand, to go into the US. The US is a massive market. It's a huge opportunity to relaunch the Norton brand. And the complexities inside of the homologation and certification are massive. They're massive. Going back to racing experience, for example, running a race team in a previous life, a 1,000 cc superbike engine, for example, has to do about 1,400 kilometers in its lifetime. And today they're making about 240 horsepower, right? That's a racing engine. And there's no limit on exhaust emissions. There's no limit on EMC emissions. And the noise limit is 115 dB. The motorcycles that we're making for the street in a high performance category today, you're making 200 to 215 horsepower on a street bike engine. It's meeting exhaust emissions, which are really restringent. It's meeting noise emissions, which are 77 decibels. It's so complicated to make those engines, and they have to last 50 to 100,000 kilometers. So the technology and the engineering that we're putting into production street bikes for the next 5, 10, even 15 years, depending on what happens with legislation, is massive. And that takes a massive amount of engineering and upfront costs. I heard John mention earlier that Norton as a company in the course of the last financial year spent $38 million. They didn't spend $38 million. They invested $38 million in the engineers and the engineering. And that's not even getting into the tooling costs that it takes to put a new motorcycle into production. The complexities of designing, developing, industrializing, and putting into production a motorcycle today is massive. It's absolutely massive to make a global product. And right now, the vision of Norton is to get into production here within the next 12 to 18 months with our product plan and take these motorcycles to the world, relaunch the Norton brand, and get inside that, what I mentioned, the Nortonness. Now, I realized with John's speech here earlier, he did the raise of the hands. How many people believed Norton was Norton up to a certain point? And as we went through the story of Norton, the hands kept coming down and down. And there's only 7 of you here in the room today that believe Norton today is Norton, which was pretty interesting. So what we have to do now is show to everybody that's in this room, young, old, that Norton still exists and the ethos and Nortonness are still there inside of that product. And like I said, I really want to have a chance to talk with all of you. If anybody has any idea, what is Norton to you? What makes Norton a Norton? Does anybody have any ideas? One gentleman with a hand up.
It always used to be that racing improved for each. One thing which I think a lot of people have been unhappy about is that Robert and the new team haven't been able to give any indication as to when Norton might one day go racing. Do you have anything on that?
That's a good question. I don't know if everybody heard that. For him, Norton is racing, and he wants to know, I'm just going to paraphrase, if and when Norton is ever going to return to racing. Racing is, for a brand, extremely important. To go racing, if you're not winning, or you're not in a position where you can fight to win, because to win, you have a lot of factors going on around you, right? To go racing, you need a great bike, you need a great team, and you need an exceptional rider. And then you need the time to develop that team and that rider and that bike into a competitive team and a competitive unit to be able to fight for wins. Does Norton want to go racing in the future? Norton brand has its roots in racing, right? Would we love to go racing with Norton? We'd love to go racing with Norton. But to go racing, you first have to have a company that has a product that you can then commercially sell. You can make a solid company, and when the company is solid, then you can start looking at other avenues and activities to reinforce the marketing of that brand, right? To go racing, there's endless experiences in the motorcycle world of companies, even here in the UK, for example, Petronas, that created a fantastic bike, went racing, spent a lot of money, and then went home, right? It's easy to try to build a race bike, try to do something with it, show it off, but if you don't have a solid company behind with a solid product, what does the racing serve? So we need to have racing at the right time. Another question.
Sorry, connected to the first question, there is a guy working at Norton Christian Gladwell. I don't know if he works there anymore, but he tells in the newspapers Norton will never go racing again. And then I managed to succeed in an Indian magazine with an interview from Mr. Katkar with the, how is he called, the chief
Sudarshan Venu.
editor. And in India, TVS is setting up a racing team.
TVS has been racing in India for over 25 years.
Yes, but that's a contradiction from the company in India and what people tell us in England. Okay, we don't going to race, blah blah blah. Same firm. That's for me. I can't understand.
Maybe I can shed some light on that. So TVS, who is the parent company that owns Norton, of course, is a massive manufacturer in India. They manufacture almost 4 million two-wheeled motorcycles per year. And inside of their company, they also have a racing department. And that racing department competes in road racing. They do off-road racing and rally and motocross as well. Now, TVS has been around for just about 100 years. And their racing experiences started really in the late 80s, early 90s. Got the racing team that's going forward. Does Norton want to go racing? Would Norton like to go racing? For sure, it's something that we're looking at. Is it the priority today? Right? There's the question. Is racing the priority today? Is spending money to go racing as important as building a company, as building the engineering team, as building the product, as building the commercial dealership network around the world, and making a solid base as a company that can then afford to go racing? The second one. Does that answer? Okay. But you didn't tell me what Norton is for you.
Norton is, except for my wife, the love of my life. I'm happily married for 43 years. So, but I met great people through the band, through my hobby, in England, in Holland, everywhere, around the world. It's a great brand. Yeah, it's a great brand. And I really hope, that's the reason I'm here today, that TVS and Norton will succeed in a proper way. Yesterday, we visited here a tiny shop, Hitchcock Motorcycles, lovely shop, and they have new Royal Enfields there for £6,000. So they're going to attract new people. But we, from Norton, we say, no, we're going to sell very expensive bikes. And that, I don't see that's a good step to start with.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So Norton is the love of your life. It's also,
Except my wife.
except your wife, who is number one,
And my children.
and your children, of course, your family. Your family.
And my friends.
Yeah. And you touched on something else that's really important. Norton for you is a way to interact with people that are like-minded with you. And Norton as a company, it's always about the people. The brand is extremely important, but what makes the brand is the people that are behind the brand. And the most important thing that we're doing right now inside of Norton is bringing in the right people, putting them in the right position, and putting them in a position where they can succeed with the brand. And that's, like I said before, the commercial structure, the industrial structure, the product, and the positioning of Norton isn't just extremely expensive motorcycles. Whatever segment Norton gets into, we'll be premium in that segment. Okay, and there's a lot of different segments and a lot of different price structures, but where Norton will be positioned will be a premium product inside of that segment.
By segment, you mean category. So, for example, a street bike or a sport bike or an adventure bike or a touring bike. Is that what you mean by segments, different types of bike?
Inside of the motorcycle market, you have many different types of motorcycles, many different segments, many different price points, right? So it depends, each one of those things, how they come together and where Norton is positioned inside of that. And Norton, for sure, is going to be a premium brand.
To answer your question to an extent, I mean, most of us here are probably of a different generation to your primary market, but when I was in my 20s, I was attracted to Nortons by the racing. But I was never a racer, and I never particularly fast rider. But that was something that was there, always in the background. But I think for me it's go anywhere bikes. That's the thing. I still, in southern Spain this year on my Commando, they've always been bikes you could go anywhere on. So picking up on your premium bit, they have to be they had to be well made and a good bike. And I've always wanted some capacity to carry luggage so that you can travel. But I don't know whether that applies quite as much to the younger generation. But I think there is a certain segment in the market that wants to really use their bikes to go away, to travel away. And I hope that whatever you produce will be something even I could go out and buy and think, yeah, I'll have one of those and we'll take it off to France or wherever. I'm not looking for a commuter bike anymore. When I was younger I did, but I'm not looking for that anymore.
Yeah, that's actually some really good points that you brought up there, because not only is it important, the ergonomics and the comfort, that when you get on the bike, you're able to ride the bike for a long period of time. Even if it's a sports bike, you still want to be comfortable on that bike. The other side of that is quality, because if you're going to be taking long trips, you want to make sure that the bike is going to get you there and get home. And quality comes through development. So when you design, engineer a motorcycle, then you start to prototype and develop that motorcycle, and then you put that motorcycle into production. The most important factors for reliability come through the development and the industrialization. Quality is making all of the parts, all of the tolerances as repeatable as possible, and making sure that in production you have complete control of that. And that comes through the development phase, which is fundamental to make sure that when we bring a Norton product to the market, that we have all of the supply chain, all of the internal processes, the manufacturing, the assembly, and the final testing, and the bikes that have gone through all of the testing requirements in all different conditions, hot, cold. Here in the UK, for development, you're limited by weather, right? Here, hot is different than what's hot in southern Spain. It's different than what's hot in southern Italy, right? Or in northern Africa. We need to make sure that we're designing and develop our motorcycles, we're testing them in all of these different conditions, so that when you get your new Norton and you drive your Norton wherever it may be in the world, that it gets you home. And this is a step-by-step process.
So how are you going to spend all this money and get the character and soul into the bikes that most of us lot in here love and cherish? All the millions in the world ain't going to be able to put that in a motorbike. So how are you going to do that? The character and the soul into that bike. Call it what you like, reliable, premium, whatever. But if it ain't got the character and soul, you're not going to appeal to a lot of people.
And these are where I wanted to go with this line of questioning. What makes the character of Norton? What is Nortonness, right? It's something that connects you to the bike. It's the sound. It has to have a distinct sound. It has to have a sound that isn't noise. And Alan and I have had these discussions quite a few times over the past 15 years. All motorcycles make noise. Not all motorcycles make sound. And what connects you to that motorcycle is when you can find that window of that sound, that resonance that comes into you as you ride the bike. It doesn't need to be annoying to everybody around you, but it needs to be something that you as a rider can feel and can connect with. And the same thing with vibrations, right? There is vibrations that are very annoying, and it depends where that vibration comes from. There's 5 contact points on the bike: the handlebars, the foot pegs in your seat. And then you have 2 peripheral contact points, which are your knees touching the side of the fuel tank or panels. What frequencies you have and where those frequencies are at different areas of riding make a difference on connecting you to that bike, right? What you don't want is high frequency vibration when you're at the 80 miles an hour on the motorway, because that's 70 to 80 is where you spend a lot of your time. High frequency vibration, that becomes an annoyance. It doesn't come to something that lets you know that there's a motorcycle under you. When you're driving around at 20 miles an hour coming through town, if you can feel just the right vibrations coming from that, it lets you know something's going on beneath you. It connects you to that bike. So these are the things that we're looking at with a tremendous amount of attention to make sure that we're identifying the right sound signature we have on our motorcycles. When you start the bike, exactly the sound signature that's going to come out of that Norton to let you know that it's a Norton. The frequency of the exhaust note that comes out, the frequency of the air intake, right? These are all things that add to the aura that when you're riding the bike connects you to that bike. So these are things that we're spending a lot of time looking at.
To follow up on that question, would it be possible to build Nortonness into an electric motorcycle?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if many of you have had a chance to ride some of the electric bikes that are on the market here today. They're not inspiring, even if they have incredible acceleration, some of them, right? That from 0 to 100 are extremely fast. It's like the electric cars. they don't inspire any connection between you and the vehicle. You know, I was driving a Porsche Panamera not long ago in a small town in Italy, getting off on a tangent. And when it was the first time I was driving the Porsche Panamera, and I drove up into the center of the town. In most Italian towns, there's always the piazza, the center area where everybody is hanging out, drinking their coffee and whatever. And when I pulled up to the piazza, it was right when school let out. So all the young kids were standing outside there in the piazza and having the chat and everything. And when I was there in the Panamera, this was about a year and a half ago, it was an extremely expensive car, a nice looking car. But when I got there next to the piazza at the signal light, there was nothing I could do to let these people see that I was driving something that was special. And because I couldn't make myself look special with that car, I immediately lost any kind of connection of specialness of the car. Incredible performance, incredible acceleration, but really nothing that allowed me to feel like I was part of something with that car. And it's the same thing with electric motorcycles. If it doesn't in some way connect through sound, through vibrations, and give you the opportunity to feel part of what that motorcycle is, it becomes an appliance. Right? So these, again, are aspects that we're looking
I
at.
rode a Zero and put it on full sport, and it was exciting, but I suddenly realised how much it's about sound and how much it's about doing nice gear changes.
Exactly. Exactly. And making you interact with it, right? When you interact with it, you feel like you're a part of it. Agreed.
What about a bit of cardboard in the spokes?
Some cards. We could put some Joker cards in there.
On a slightly more serious note, John's talk was fascinating about the owners, good, bad, and colourful, shall we say. And you'll be pleased to know, if you weren't already aware, that TVS are the 14th owner of Norton, not the 13th. I hope that's significant, and I wish you well. I have a slight connection with Norton, and it begins to look good. Good hunting.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think they were waiting for the 13th owner to take it before they were really coming in to buy. But thank you very much.
So, how many employees do you have right now? And when you start ramping up production, you know, what's the future of the employment looking like? How many people will you have in, say, 2 years' time?
So as an internal structure right now in Norton here in Solihull, we're just over 200 people. And of those 200 people, 70 of them are in engineering. So there is a big group of engineers here in the UK that are focused on new product development.
So in 2 years' time, how many people do you see you having?
So the number of people in the factory here are going to increase to support the production area as well as engineering. So there is going to be a growth. I'm not going to give those numbers out right here. Those are inside, but there is growth projected. Any other points? Yeah, Norton. What is Norton for you?
I own a number of bikes, and all of them give me something from tick over, from when I first started, to pulling off. And then, as you know, in the UK, we used to have 60-mile-an-hour limits on the country lanes. We now gone down to 50. I think it will carry on in that vein. So we're not looking for 200 miles an hour bikes. We're not looking at 250 brake horsepower. What we want is something that gives that feel of power, but it's not necessarily high-speed fast. And that's what I'm looking at. I get it from my old Harley. I've got an old 60-year-old Triumph. It does the same. When I bought the 961 that I think is beautiful, I was so disappointed with the sound, with the fact that it doesn't actually go anywhere under 3,000 revs, unless you want to have your teeth shaken out and it jerking and pulling. And I think that's where you've got to go, is not the high speed. That's not what people want. They want something that, as you said, you can tick over, sounds nice pulling up to the bike beat, but has that smoothness that is going to pull, give that power and acceleration at lower speeds and hang the high speeds, in my opinion.
I agree with that. Acceleration is really important. Torque is really important. You know, we're at a point where we're talking about two ends of the spectrum, because when we mention racing is extremely focused in one area. Power, RPM, lightweight. But what makes a good street bike is not what makes a great race bike. And it's really important to understand the difference between those two things. Now, one thing we have with the advent of some of the latest technology and connectivity and tracking and data acquisition, we have a number of bikes that have done 30, 40, 50,000 kilometers, and also of our competitors, that have been driving around, and we understand exactly how people are using bikes, the real data that's coming off the bikes. And I can assure you, what people think they're doing and what they're actually doing with a motorcycle couldn't be further apart. And that even goes for high-level street riders and riders that are riding on the track. What you think you're doing and what you're actually doing are two completely different things. And to put that into context, a MotoGP bike, I was speaking with one of my close friends last week at Mugello. At Mugello, all the way around the track, which is over a 2-minute lap time, the total amount of time that the rider has the throttle wide open and the electric throttle bodies are wide open at the same time is less than 7 seconds. In 123 seconds of a lap time, less than 7 seconds is actual wide open throttle, right? Twisting the electronic twist grip is one thing. You're saying, I want the maximum power. But today, with all the controls that we have, you can't put that maximum power to the ground with either lighting up the back tire or flipping over backwards, right? So you're completely cutting the torque and all the acceleration coming out of the corner, going down the straight, even going 140, 150, 160 kilometers an hour, you're still limiting the torque going to the back wheel to keep from flipping over backwards. So really what people are asking for and they think they're getting and what the bikes are actually delivering are two completely different things. And it's really important to divide those two things because one is marketing and one is making the customer happy and meeting the customer's needs, right? So if we make a motorcycle that has 210 horsepower and is a sports bike and we bring it to the market and it's high strung and it's not easy to drive in traffic, it's going to give you an experience. If we make it 200 and some horsepower and it has a lot of torque and it's easy to ride and makes you feel good riding it, it's a complete different experience. And it's important to recognize those things to be able to implement that and bring that into the product. Those are really good points. Thank you. One in the back.
I'm a little bit concerned that Norton might go the way of Benelli and Motorini, i.e. they've been manufactured abroad. And for instance, anybody knows anything about Motomarinis, the new ones, they've got Motomarini written on them, but there's no substance or resemblance whatsoever. And Benelli are the same. There is a worry, I think, that you might produce a nice motorcycle, but whether people here will think there's any connection with Norton or not is another matter.
That's a really good point. The Norton brand is a UK brand, and it needs to be unabashedly nationalistic. It's UK, right? And to be a UK brand, it needs to have manufacturing here in the UK. And that's why I mentioned previously, please come and visit us at our Solihull factory to understand the investments that are happening to make Norton a UK manufactured motorcycle. Okay, that's not to say that Norton isn't a global brand that has to look globally to be competitive, but there are bikes manufactured here in the UK.
Thank you.
Hi, I'll try and answer your question. Relative to everyone in the room, I'm probably very naive and new Norton owner. I've got a new bike from the factory, and I have to say that the experience so far has been excellent. Thank you very much. And what attracted to me about Norton was the looks. I saw the 961. I thought I want one of those from the previous owner, but I wasn't sure about the engineering. I think it's the sound, the vibrations, like you say. I've got on one. I've tested some modern classics, Triumph, for example, and it was a bit, to me, a bit like being on a sewing machine. I've got other bikes, fast bikes, and you know, there's always the temptation to go as fast as you can on the road, but you're wondering what you're doing and looking for the helicopter. But it was the sound, the vibration, and the look. But it was also that, well, you know, you have a new owner who's investing heavily in you and doing things, it seems to me, properly. But you have retained that unique Britishness, Englishness, you might even say, and are employing the workers here, which is another reason I didn't go for another brand. You know, the comments about the Italian manufacturers there, just badging. Yeah. So. Yeah, I just want to repeat, my experience has been very good, and please continue with the excellent work. I have a question now, if that's okay, which is, you talked about segments, and when I was in the factory, I saw all the things going on. But what segment would you go for next? Because no offence, chaps, but everyone in this room is a certain age. You've got to be going for the younger guys or girls as well. So what segment might you go for, if you're allowed to say? But if you're not, that's fine.
There is nothing more that I would like to do than unveil the product plan here to you today. And I'd love to then talk to every one of you about it. It's not the right time. So I'll have to hold off on diving into those details, but it's coming.
Can we ask if it's a derivative of an existing bike, or is it a completely new bike?
The Norton products are developing now are completely brand new.
Brand new?
Yes, sir.
When you get your new bikes to the market, how are you going to do it? Will you use standard agents around the country? Will you internet sell? Because we're seeing motorcycle shops are getting fewer and fewer. So how do you intend to market the bike once you've got it built?
So one thing is marketing, another thing is the commercialization. And with the commercialization side, there will be a brick and mortar stores going through dealerships, and this is something that the commercial department right now is putting a lot of time and a lot of thought into on what the strategy is, what's the best way, and it's not the same in all markets. So we're going to be rolling out Norton across 6 different major markets between Europe, UK, the USA, and so forth. And to roll that out, different things work differently in different markets. So they're looking at that closely. Yes. Okay, we use it up our time.
Yeah, we're about there. Do you want to do the last one then?
Yep, one last question from the back.
You better be a good...
I know you don't want to tell us the models, but if it's a V4, a Wankel engine, relatively, they're too expensive, I can't afford them. I don't know if anyone here can afford them.
So the point is, if it's a V4 engine, it's probably too expensive for the general population. Right. The Norton brand will be positioned, I think, to cover a wide range of customers.
We've got one more speaker.
Sorry. One more speaker. So one more question in the back.
I can see
yeah.
it is. The numbers that you need to manufacture to make it a viable proposition, would you be able to do that at Solihull, or would you have to manufacture abroad?
To make Norton a financially viable in terms of sales, one point is break even for a company, another is additional profits. So so the question is, does the Solihull factory offer up enough capacity to make Norton a break-even company in making profit? There's more than enough capability inside of Norton Solihull, yes. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it was really a pleasure. Oh, we never had a question from a lady over here, so let's, from the lovely woman over here.
What made TVS want to take over Norton and move it forward?
Why was TVS interested in Norton? That's a great question. TVS has a vision of where their products are and where they fit in the global marketplace, and they wanted to have a luxury brand to push that even higher. And brand is important. And to be able to do that, TVS and Norton together give them a lot of opportunity to position the products and the brands globally. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. It was a pleasure to be here with you today.